In Unit 1, we're going to start by covering a lot of the basics of algebra, some of the essential building blocks. The first 5 questions ask us to match the vocabulary to the correct definition. You don't have to do them in any particular order. In fact, the first number that jumps out to me is constant. A constant is a number that stands all by itself. Variable, those are the letters in algebra. It's a variable, a letter that stands for a particular numerical value. Each part of an expression separated by a plus or minus is called a term. A number that doesn't stand by itself that's attached to a variable, like 3x, 3 would be the coefficient. Which leaves E, a number sentence without an equal sign, has at least one term and one operation. This symbol means less than. This symbol means greater than. This symbol means greater than or equal to, because it's underlined, and this one means less than or equal to. All right, in this next problem, we need to identify the terms. And each term is separated by a plus or a minus sign. So every time I get to a plus or a minus, I lift my pen and I change to my new term. So you can see that this one has 4 terms, and they are 7d, negative 2f, negative 14, and positive g. The variables are d, f, and g. The coefficients would be 7, negative 2, and 1. They're the numbers before the variables. And you can't see it here, but that's where the 1 comes from. And finally, the constant is negative 14. It's the number that's all by itself. Doesn't have a variable. Order of operations. We're going to simplify the numerator first. 2 minus 29 is negative 27. In the denominator, remember, we're using PEMDAS. We need to multiply 4 and 2 and get 8. Then we can add 1 and 8 to get 9. And finally, we will perform the division here and get negative 3 for our answer. Simplifying the exponent first, that makes that a 9. Now I'm going to deal with everything in the parentheses using PEMDAS. So I multiply first, 54 plus 4 is 58. Divided by 2, take away 1. 58 divided by 2 is 29. Take away 1 is 28. Now we're going to combine our like terms, so I'm going to look at all of the z-squared terms. And then all of the terms with just a z. And finally, all the constant terms. Terms that are just numbers. When I combine the yellow terms, negative 3 plus 5, I get 2z squared. So I know it can't be any of these, because I need 2z squared. When I combine 45 and 3, I get 48. And finally, negative 12 and negative 1 gives me negative 13. So my answer is A. Next, we must distribute. We have an 8 outside the parentheses. When we distribute, we get 24x minus 48y. Now, that answer is E. I still need to distribute this negative before the parentheses. It's actually like a -1. I'm going to distribute. So 2y drops down, -4 plus, sorry, my pen got a little crazy there, 3y plus 3. Notice this 2y just dropped down. This plus 3 at the end also just dropped down. And then everything that had been inside the parentheses is now simplified. So I can look and see which terms are like, kind of like the problem above. I have 2y and 3y, which makes 5y. Could be answer choice C, D, or E. And then I have some numbers. When I combine those, I get -1. So the correct answer is D. The next concept is solving an equation for a variable. Here, they tell me to solve for b, so I'm going to highlight the b. In fact, I'm going to rewrite the problem over here. 3a plus 5b equals 10, so that I can actually show my work a little bit better. I always like to put a line through my equal sign to keep the two sides of the equation the same, to keep them balanced, so I can keep track of what's on the left and what's on the right. First thing I need to do is move 3a to the right side by subtracting. On the left, they cancel, and I'm left with 5b equals 10 minus 3a. I want to get b by itself. How do I get rid of times 5? Well, I divide by 5. b equals 10 minus 3a divided by 5. Notice none of the answers look like this answer, which means I can simplify further. Instead of dividing both terms in the numerator by one denominator, I can actually split it apart and divide each piece by 5 and simplify. 10 divided by 5 is 2, -3/5 a, which is C. Recopied this next problem. P equals 2L plus 2W, and they want us to solve for L, which means we want to clear off everything from the right side of this equation except for L. To begin, I'll subtract 2W from both sides. On the right side, they cancel out, and I'm left with 2L. And on the left side, I can't combine a P with a W because they're not like. So I just have P, take away 2W. Finally, I divide by 2 to get rid of the times 2 that's happening here. And there's my answer. This time the answer choice is visible right here. P minus 2W divided by 2. So I don't have to simplify it further. But I could. I could do P divided by 2 minus 2W divided by 2. The 2's would cancel out and I'd end up with this. That would also be an acceptable answer. Next, we want to solve for x. Draw a line down the center. The first thing I want to do is get rid of this divided by 3 by multiplying by 3 on both sides. On the left, they cancel out, and I have x plus c equals 3y, because y times 3 is 3y. Now I need to get rid of this c. The only way to get rid of c is to subtract c from both sides. X cancel out, so I have just x equals 3y minus c. And that's my final answer. Again, I want to solve for x in terms of c and d. Drop a line down the center. I'm going to add c to both sides. On the left, they cancel out, and I'm left with 5x equals d plus c. Because they're not like, they can't go together. Then I divide by 5. X equals d plus c divided by 5. And that is my final answer. Let's solve for L in terms of y. That means get L by itself. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract 6 from both sides. The 6's cancel. Y minus 6 equals 3L. And then finally I divide by 3. Y minus 6 divided by 3 equals L. That can be an answer, or we could take it a step further. Remember, we can put y over 3 minus 6 over 3. And 6 over 3 cancels to 2 over 1. So we could end up with L equals y over 3 minus 2 for our final answer. That would be acceptable as well. Let's take a look at some multi-step equations. Here we have variables on both sides. The first thing I need to do is distribute. 7 times x is 7x. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. It equals 3x plus 2. I prefer to get my letters on the left. I just prefer to try to organize my equations that way. But you don't have to. You could move the 7x to the right. But I prefer letters on the left, so I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. So the x's on the right-hand side of the equation are gone, and I'm left with just 2. On the left side, these terms are like. 7x take away 3x gives me 4x. Take away 14. Next, I'm going to add 14 to both sides. Again, they cancel out. I'm trying to get x isolated. So I have 4x equals 16. 4x equals 16. The only thing left to do is to divide by 4. So x equals 4. Starting by drawing a line down the center of my equation again. And again, I like to get my letters on the left, so I'm going to start by adding x to both sides, because adding x cancels out with the subtract x that was already there. When I add x, I get 6x plus 4 9ths equals 7. Now I'm going to subtract 4/9. 6x is all that's left here because positive 4/9 and negative 4/9 are canceled out. 7 could also be known as 63/9. Take away 4/9 gives me 59/9. And the next thing I need to do is divide by 6. Remember, dividing by 6 is the same as multiplying by 1/6. So for my final answer, x equals 59/54. Next, we have a different kind of equation where we have two ratios equal to one another. When this happens, when you have a fraction on the left equal to a fraction on the right, we can simply cross multiply and set them equal. So 15 times x is 15x. 30 times -9 is -270. And then dividing by 15 on both sides, x equals, let's see here, if we divide both of them by 3, to get it into lowest terms, that will make that a 5, and that will make that a -90. We can divide them both by 5. That makes that a 1. And that's a -18. So my final answer is -18. All right, a sequence of steps for solving this is shown. We want to write a property that would justify each step. This is what we start with, so that's the given. Going from this step to this step, you can see that we've just taken this -4 and distributed. So the next step is the distributive property. Going from this second step to the third step, you can see that the 12 remains the same, 30 remains the same, but this -8 is gone. And over here, 28 became 20. -28 became -20 because I've added 8x to both sides. That's the addition property. Notice going from this step to the next step, I still have -20x. But these numbers have changed because I subtracted 12 from both sides with the subtraction property. And then finally, to get x by itself on the left, to isolate it, I divide by -20. So that's the division property. Now we're going to try to figure out the mistake. And I'm not sure why we start off talking about Sally and then talk about Fred. It must be a typo with this worksheet. So just bear with me. Sally solved this equation. She made an error between step 2 and 3. Going from here to here, she made a mistake. Well, let's see what happened. It looks like she was trying to get these two x's to the other side, and we know that we have to add 2x so that they cancel out. But what Sally forgot is that negative 3 plus 2 is not negative 5. It would be negative 1x. So, to describe the error, when adding 2x to negative 3x, you get negative 1x, not negative 5x. So now we have to solve it the rest of the way down. We know that all of these negative 5x's should be negative 1. So when we divide by negative 1 on both sides, we end up with x equals 4 for our final answer. Let's take a look at part 2 rather, test B. We're going to change our language into mathematics. We're going to just translate these English words into math numbers and symbols. 12 more than the number p is means equals 37. So 12 plus p equals 37. Now let's solve. Separate our sides of the equation. We're going to subtract 12 from both sides. P equals 25. Eight is 5 less than. Now when you see the word less than, that means whatever comes before less than and whatever comes after less than has to switch spots. So less than we know means subtract. So I'm going to subtract 5 from twice r. It's hard to see because it kind of got covered up with my writing. Whenever that happens, you have to switch spots. We don't have to do it when it says more than, but when it says less than, you have to switch spots. Whatever precedes the word less than comes after subtraction, and whatever comes after the word less than comes before the subtraction sign. So 8 equals twice r, subtract 5. Next, we're going to solve. We're going to add 5, which gives us 13 equal to twice r. Then we're going to divide by 2, which gives us 6.5. The product of, so we're talking about multiplying 14 and the number n. Remember, is means equals 112. 14 times n equals 112. When I write that, I could just say 14n equals 112. I don't actually need to put the multiplication sign there. And now I need to divide by 14. Let's use our calculator. 112 divided by 14. 112 divided by 14 equals 8. So my answer is 8. The sum means addition, of 7 times a number and 13 means equals 55. 7n plus 13 is 55. Now we have to solve by subtracting 13 and dividing by 7. N equals 6. Timmy went to Panera and bought 4 bagels for $2 each and 2 salads. If his total was 17, how much did the salad cost? 4 bagels, and they were $2 each, which means he spent $8 on bagels. Sorry, my pen keeps stopping. Kind of annoying, I know. See if I can't get it working again. There we go. All right. $8 on bagels and 2 salads. We don't know how much the salads cost, so we'll say that he spent 8 on bagels and 2 times the cost of a salad. And it equals 17. So let's solve. Let's subtract 8 from both sides. 2s equals 9. So the cost of the salad must be $4.50. So our equation was 8 plus 2 times the variable, and then the salad was $4.50. Let's do some dimensional analysis, converting and interpreting units. A car is traveling at 36 feet per second, and we want to get to miles per hour. That's what mph means. Well, I currently have feet on the top, but I know that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. So I'm going to take this conversion factor and put it into my dimensional analysis chart in such a way that the feet will cancel. Remember, things in math cancel top to bottom, kind of like when we reduce fractions. So I want my feet to be on the bottom. I want to put 5,280 on the bottom and 1 mile on top. So now the good news is we have miles. That's what we wanted, but we need to turn seconds into hours. Well, we know that there are 60 seconds in 1 minute. So that's a start. And again, if I want the seconds to cancel, I need to put seconds on top. 60 seconds in 1 minute. The seconds cancel, but minute isn't my goal. Hours is my goal. But I also know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. It's my third unit conversion factor. And again, I want to put them in such a way that the minutes will cancel. I have minutes on the bottom, so I want to put 60 minutes on top and 1 hour on the bottom. The minutes cancel. I have hours on the bottom, which is exactly what I wanted. So the rule is take all the numbers across the top, 36 times 1 times 60 times 60. Let's use the calculator. 36 times 1, I'm not even going to type that because it doesn't change anything, times 60 times 60. And I get 129,600. On the bottom, 1 times 5280 times 1 times 1, I can do that in my head. It's 5280. So now I just need to divide these on the calculator. I'm going to take that last answer I got and divide it by 5280. And I get 24.5. 24.5 miles per hour. Let's convert 132 inches to feet. Well, I know there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Looks like I made my dimensional analysis line plenty long because I already ended up with feet. That was my goal, feet. The inches cancel, so they're gone. 132 divided by 12 is 11 feet. One 10,560 feet converted to miles. Well, we know from the first problem we did, there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. And again, we already got to the correct units that we wanted. We wanted to get to miles. So using my calculator, $10,560 divided by 5280 gives me 2 miles. 2 quarts to cups. Well, let's see. I know that there are 2 pints in 1 quart. So I could put 1 quart on the bottom and 2 pints on the top. That gets rid of quarts, but it doesn't get me to cups. But I also know that there are 2 cups in 1 pint. So I'll put 1 pint on the bottom, 2 cups on the top, and now I got to cups. That was my goal. 2 times 2 times 2 makes 8. 96 ounces into pints. Well, we know there's 8 ounces in a cup. That gets rid of ounces. And from above, we know that there are 2 cups in 1 pint. So I'm going to put 2 cups on the bottom, so the cups cancel, and 1 pint on top. I got to pints, that was my goal. 96 divided by 8 times 2. 96 on top divided by 16 gives me 6. Let's subtract and simplify. The first thing we need to do is distribute this -1. In other words, we need to change all the signs of the terms in the second set of parentheses. So let's rewrite what we have. We have 4a squared minus 3ab plus 11. Take away 2a squared. Take away 5ab. Add 6. Change, change, change. Now I'm going to combine all the a squared terms. I'm going to combine all the ab terms, because in order for terms to be like, they have to have the very same variables, or no variables at all, like 11 and 6. When I combine these, 4 take away 2 gives me 2a squared. Negative 3ab, negative 5ab is negative 8ab, plus 17. 11 and 6 makes 17. The next one we just need to add. Well, technically we really don't even need the parentheses when it says add, so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of them. We just want to add the x terms, and we want to add the constant terms. 5x and 2x makes 7x. Negative 4 plus 3 makes negative 1. Multiplying. At Mercy Macaulay, we like to use the box method, but you could also FOIL. I'll quickly show you both options. If you like to use the box method, it's kind of like a Punnett square. We're going to put the first term across the top here. 3x, take away 1, 2x plus 4, and we multiply to get 6x squared, negative 2x, 4 times 3x is 12x, 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And you'll notice that these terms are like, so when I write my solution, I get that for an answer. Again, you could also do first, outer, inner, last, and you would get the same answer. Let's distribute. A monomial times a binomial means to distribute. We get 3x, take away 15. I can't combine these because one has a variable and one does not. Finally, we have a complex trinomial times a trinomial. So we're going to write this and use the box method. The other option, if you aren't familiar with the box method, that's okay. You could also take the first term times the first times the middle times the last. Take the middle times the first times the middle times the last. And finally, the last times the first, last times the middle, and last times last. Similar to foiling, it just gets very complicated to keep track of your arcs. So instead, I'm just going to use the box method, which gives me 3x to the 4th. 2x times x squared is 2x cubed. Take away 4x squared. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. X cubed. Negative 12x squared plus 24x. 27x squared, 18x, take away 36. And again, we're looking for like terms. So the x cubes go together, the x squareds go together, and the x terms go together when we write our final answer. Starting with the highest degree, 3x to the 4th. Take away 16x cubed by combining the yellow terms. Combining the blue terms, 27 take away 12 is 15, take away 4 is 11. Combining the green terms, I get 42. Oh, there goes my pen. And minus 36. The last thing we have to do is apply properties of exponents. Anything to the 0 power is just 1. Negative exponents prefer to become positive, So that 4 to the negative 2 moves to the denominator. We simplify and get 1/16. Power means raise everything in the parentheses to that power. 5 to the 4th, x to the 4th. And if you're not comfortable doing 5 to the 4th, just use your calculator. 5 to the 4th is 625. So we get 625 x to the 4th. Okay, for the next part, we have a monomial times a monomial. We're going to multiply the numbers, the coefficients, and get negative 18. Then we're going to multiply the x's. X squared is x times x. X to the 7th just means 7 x's all multiplied together. And when I multiply them with one another, I get x to the 9th. Similar with division, we're going to divide the numbers first, or reduce the fraction, which gives me 1 over 8. And then I need to divide the a's. 3 a's on top and 3 a's on the bottom. They all cancel, so they're gone. 1 b on top with 8 b's on the bottom. 1 pair cancels and I'm left with b to the 7th on the bottom. So 1 over 8b to the 7th. Now I know Unit 1 took quite a while to review. That was 42 minutes. But that is the bulk of what you will learn in Algebra 1. And next we will look at 3 other videos to review the rest of the year's content.